Call to order the Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting for Thursday, August 26, 2021. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Your votes, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
First on the agenda is a variety of upcoming NASB events, which Mr. Alexander will tell us about.
Okay, just, you get postcards on this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but just want to make you aware that we are starting to get to a point where we need to have formal commitments on whether or not you plan to attend the Facilities and Construction Workshop on September 9th in Kearney. I'm planning on going to that. So if you're interested, if you can check these dates on your calendars, you don't have to commit right now, but just send information to Danielle if you want to attend, so we can get you registered and get all that taken care of. The area membership meetings, the one I'm going to plan to attend, just because of the plethora of evening events and things that are going on, the one that looks the best is October 6th at Nebraska City. We have a couple that have said that they'll be attending that. And then the Labor Relations Conference on October 12th through the 13th in Lincoln primarily consists of the negotiations committee that would be going to that. I'll be going to that as well. So all three of those are events that are scheduled. We just need to know your commitment level, so we'll probably send out one more reminder email tomorrow and get you signed up for those if you decide you want to go to any one of them. Are there any questions about what those things are? Because I can answer those. I mean, I know some. Eric, do you have any questions?
I plan on going to the area membership meeting.
Okay.
So, yeah, what is that?
As long as, right now, I'm planning on going, actually.
Okay. Perfect.
Do you know what time the facilities one starts?
9 a.m.
So it's not, don't have to stay overnight necessarily, it's drivable.
No, I think it's drivable. Yeah. And then September 22nd is a school law workshop in Kearney that I'll be going to that, so. Okay, that's it.
Okay, and then next on the agenda is a policy article update with Mr. Alexander and Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, so what you have in front of you, you have two sections of policy, and we'll kind of talk about the process here and what those things are. So the first section that we'll talk about are the 1000s, so you want to make sure you have that section in front of you. There's also a 2000 section that essentially what our plan is you have a table of contents on top. And that table of contents, you can see the Perry policy number and the Beatrice policy number. Now, in this process, what we're trying to clean up is that there's policies that have been put in over the time period dating all the way back to 1993, 94. That, and some of those policies haven't really needed updated just because of the contents of them. But a lot of policies need to be updated, and either way, we should probably be reviewing and updating them anyway. So what we've tried to do to make this easier for future as well is that we get all of our policies through the Perry Law Firm. So they're legally reviewed before they ever get to us. And what happens in the summertime is the Perry Law Firm sends out all the updated policies that have happened from the legislative session that will impact us that year if there's updates. Now, there will be some updates that were decided this last legislative session that we won't actually get updates on until this summer because they don't start going into effect until next school year, 22-23. So that's a lot, but that's how that works, is we get those policy updates sent to us in June, and then when everything's aligned in the policy manuals, it's a very easy transition from the new policy to the old policy. And in past, those policy numbers haven't always matched up. That's why you see, if you look at the Perry policy number, for instance, where it says Statement of Intent 1000, the Perry policy number on that is 1,000. Our policy number on that was 1,100. So what we're trying to do is make it just easier to transition from newly adjusted policies to where we just slip the policy in, it's the same number as it was previously, and take the old policy out. Where that's not always been as easy to do because of the difference in policy numbers. So that's goal number one. Goal number two then is to insert any policies that we're missing, because there are some policies that we don't have that should be in there. And goal number three is any policies that we have that weren't in the Perry policy format, or in the Perry policies, we bring ours over that are of our own local making and put them in the right numerical order. And lastly, is that any policies that are the same policies, but maybe have some Beatrice local decisions in there, that gets brought over as well into that policy, and put in the policy manual in the right order. So really, there's like 4 things we're trying to accomplish in this policy review. Now, in the policy manuals, there's sections 1,000 to 8,000. Correction, 1,000 to 9,000. And so what we will do in this entire policy review process is we'll put probably 1 to 2 sets of policies in front of you at a committee of the whole meeting. We'll talk about them at a board meeting. So in September board meeting, we'll have these same policies here. We'll cover the logistics of them with you tonight. You can take them home and read through them. Then at the September board meeting, we'll have a first reading where we can talk more in depth about them. If there's questions or if there's requests or whatever the case may be, at the September board meeting, we'll talk about them. At the October board meeting, then that's when we would have all the changes made that maybe there won't be any. Some there probably won't be, some there may be. We've had a chance to run them through legal counsel. We'll put them back in front of you at the October board meeting with the option to approve them, if you're comfortable with that. Okay? And then at the September COW meeting though, you're going to get a whole nother section of these that will be approved then for the November meeting, and so on and so forth throughout the course of the year. So by the end of the year, the goal is to have our entire policy manual updated, 1,000s through 9,000s. And working through that process at each committee of the whole meeting, as long as everything works out the way we'd like it to, you'll get a set of 1 to 2 more sets of new policies to read and go through. We'll approve them, we'll read them again, have first reading at the next board meeting, and approval if we're ready. And I hate to have those stack up too long, then go on to the next one, but we want to make sure everybody's comfortable with it as well. So that's the goal. Okay? So tonight, we actually had these ready to go a year ago at this time, and I think we might even be giving you a set. So if you have those, throw them away. These are the most recent 1,000 policies. And basically, what I'm going to do, you have that table of contents in front of you. I'm going to direct you through that fairly quickly in terms of policies that are either changed, or we pull some of the Beatrice language over, or we have some discussionary items that we've highlighted for you in red that we need to point out, okay? So, this is, for example, this is how this would work. On policy 1,000, okay, again, that's the Perry policy, but it's the same policy we've always had in our manual. And all we've done is take the recommended legal policy from the legal counsel and pull over important information that references Beatrice Public Schools, okay? So, for instance, the first part of that policy that's all clear, it's all in the white. The first part of that is all basically the same information from the Perry 1,000 policy to our 1,100 policy. What's different is in the yellow, and all we did was take everything from the Beatrice 1,100 policy and attach it to the 1,000 policy. So you keep that Beatrice Public Schools local flavor that you had written in there for a reason. And a lot of it, like for instance, with this particular policy, talks about, in that section, a summary of standardized norm reference assessment instruments used by school district as it has been administered to students in selected grades. It just says that we will give that information to parents as needed, okay? So that's what that yellow means. Anything in yellow means that's previous Beatrice Public Schools policy pulled into the updated, approved Perry Law Firm policy. And that's also been approved by legal counsel as well. Okay? So, then we go to the 1010 policy. Again, you'll see that the 1010 policy has some yellow in it. That yellow is Beatrice Public Schools procedure for visitors checking in at buildings. The reason that that yellow is in there, the Beatrice Public Schools policy section is in there, is because when legal counsel writes these policies, they write them so they can be adapted at any school. And then they send them out, and then it's up to you to put in what your procedures are for that. That's why it's that way. Okay? So, the 1020 policy, the next one, is a combination of our citizen communication to the Board of Education and a combination of the updated policy according to Perry Law Firm. So there's both. That's why there's two 1020s. Is they're all, it's 2 pages, it's all the same. And it's our policy and Perry policy brought together. You have a confused look on it.
Which number are we looking at?
It's just
We don't have 1020.
1021.
We go to 1021. We have 1010 and then 1021.
Mine's not in there. So, okay.
We're all paying attention. And we're all
Yes, you are. You don't have a 1020? Okay. Yep. So 1020 needs to go in there. And then, so remember, tonight's we're walking through this. So 1020 will go in there, and it's the same principle. We've taken the Perry policy and the Beatrice Public Schools policy and put them in at 1020, okay? And the yellow one will be what we used to have. The white one will be the Perry policy. 1021. This is the first one where you have red. You have some highlighted discussion, okay? And this is where we talk about complaints involving school personnel. This policy is important on 1021 because when complaints are made to you as a board member, as with school personnel, that immediately needs to be referred to administration. Because as board members, if that particular situation ever ends up in a legal court situation, you are the judge and the jury as to whether or not to retain that teacher. So if a teacher requests a hearing, let's just say for instance, a teacher or a principal requests a hearing based on an evaluation and we're recommending that you terminate their contract. They request a hearing, it's gonna look a lot like a courtroom. The teacher's gonna have their legal counsel, the administration and the school board's gonna have their legal counsel. Both sides are going to be heard, and then you as a board are the jury in deciding whether or not to terminate that contract. Okay? I went through one of these right before I came here. It was a 12-hour situation. It started at 7 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. the next morning. So, the discussionary part of this is unresolved complaints which need further resolution should proceed as outlined in policy 1205. from the teacher, district employee, to the building principal, to the superintendent of schools, and if unresolved, to the Board of Education. Complaints are not resolved at the teacher-parent level shall be reported to the superintendent of schools. Any complaint first received at a higher level should promptly be redirected to the appropriate level for its review and appropriate resolution. So if it's not a personnel complaint, if it's just a complaint about maybe, I don't know, maybe too many dandelions in the football field, okay? That does not come to the superintendent to start with. That goes back to the maintenance or to the principal. Now, we don't have dandelions in our football field because we have AstroTurf, so that's why I use that example. But the point being is it's all about redirecting a complaint you get from public back to the people who are most closely associated with that complaint. It's also about the chain of command that we worked on too. Because a lot of times, if it comes directly to me, I may not know what's going on. Dr. Nielsen may not know what's going on. If it's a complaint in a classroom about a specific situation, we may not know what's going on. And the building administrator or the maintenance department or whoever that is most closely associated with is the one that needs to know that.
Does the red stay in or come out?
Well, that's what we have
That's
to.
what I wanted to know. So the red, just for clarification, is the red already in our policy?
Yeah.
And we're just talking about whether we leave it or not? Okay,
Correct.
I wasn't
Yeah.
clear on that
Because this
either.
is not very clear to me where it says, complaints not resolved at the teacher-parent level shall be reported to the superintendent of schools. That doesn't seem to follow the chain of command. If I was a angry parent, I would just highlight that and say, well, it tells me right in that sentence to go straight to the superintendent of schools. But maybe other people aren't understanding it that way.
Okay,
And then you say, first shall be promptly redirected to the appropriate level, but I think that could be
flip-flopped.
something, yeah.
Well, and I would agree, if when, I guess I was always thinking that if it's not resolved at teacher-parent level, then it goes to
The-
parent administrator.
Building
Yeah.
The
principal.
principal,
Building's right
yeah,
Yep.
that makes it sound like it goes straight to you.
So, clarify this paragraph. The next paragraph references in the policy use of profanity in a verbal, abusive, or physically abuses a district employee which is involved in an assigned duty may be prosecuted by the district to the extent provided by law. School employees who are sued as a consequence of performing their assigned duties in a manner deemed appropriate by the school administration and/or Board of Education shall be given the legal support of the school district's attorney. So basically, all we're saying is that no patron, student, or any other purpose, or any other person can purposefully use profanity in a verbal abusive or physically abusive situation against the district employee. And as long as a district employee, if they are, who is sued consequently by performing their assigned duty in a manner deemed appropriate by school administration and/or Board of Education shall be given legal support of the school district attorney. So that's pretty standard. Now, if there's anything you'd like changed, already we need to clarify that paragraph, I think, I agree with that. If there's anything you want changed or added or deleted from that second paragraph, that's why it's marked in there. We can sure talk about that tonight or talk about it at the
So
board.
let me get this straight. If an employee, like, is performing their duties, but the administration doesn't deem it appropriate, then would they come to the Board of Education and ask for our opinion to see if their actions were appropriate?
They would have to do that through a hearing request. Because if we write a reprimand, for instance, and they disagree with that reprimand, the next step is to contact their UNICERT rep, which we will tell them in a reprimand. And then we'll try and resolve it through the UNICERT rep, and then they would have to go through the Board of Education procedures. They're in a different section. And
I
which,
think that's a little unclear, because it sounds like, well, if the school administration if they disagree with that, then we could just zip right to the Board of Education. It doesn't look like there's that step you're talking about in there, that it involves a grievance procedure.
Love it. Should,
Well, it says it's outlined in policy 1205, that 1205 is not included in here, so I would to look for 1205. And
That,
1205 is now 1020.
yeah, that should be, I just made a mark on that. That should reference 1020 now. Because 1020 takes our 1205.
Okay,
I thought we did that today. I thought we did that today.
so that paragraph needs to read policy
It just didn't
1020.
get put in. Yeah.
Well, that would make sense as it can, since it prefaced not, I mean, even before that.
Should follow grievance procedure. So we'll put that in there. Okay? Okay. Prior to BOE. So we'll fix that. We won't give you an entire new stack of these. It will be best if you bring back the stack and we'll put that in there to the next meeting. Okay?
I think we need big notebooks.
Binders.
Binders, yes.
I think,
She likes binders.
yeah, I
This
think
is
I
gonna
have,
tell that,
One of them giant, like
No.
7-inch binders.
Uh-huh.
I think we have I have 8 binders that have all the policies in them, so.
I can give you 8 of them if you want.
Okay. So, that's policy 1021. Those are the parts. I'm gonna skip now 1030 and 1030A because it doesn't have anything different in it. It's just a different number. Actually, it's a Perry policy that's in there that we may or may not have had before that we need to have. And go to policy 1040. So, policy 1040 talks about annual report and school improvement. That highlighted section right there, the yellow we brought over from our old policy. The red I want to talk to you about in regard to what's reported. The annual report shall be distributed to residents of the school district by the superintendent, distributing it to the members of the Board of Education and to the parents of students enrolled in the school district each school year and making it available to other residents. Now, what that's saying is, we create an annual report, and I was gonna bring mine in here this year that we sent out to people. All right? We can continue to do that with that full annual report. We already send individual student data to parents at the end of the school year. Last year, we didn't have any assessment data to report because we didn't have assessments because of the pandemic. So, the question is this, just for my clarification, the annual report that we did could become a kind of an expensive thing, okay? I understand that. That's an expensive document to put together and make. So the question is, do you want to continue with that in there the way that it's stated? Or do you want to say,
Make it
It's
available
on
in
the
the
site.
office for
Make it
anybody who wants to
available?
get it.
What's that?
On the district site, can you put it on?
yep,
I would say no to that.
And I
With the
think
mailing.
paper copies are available at the admin building. I mean, you know, there's just no way, I mean, I thought it was ridiculous that we mailed them out last year to papers on that slip paper we paid an arm and a leg for. I mean,
I thought
yeah.
if they wanted, they could.
I will, I mean, people don't go to a website. I mean, I don't sit at home and go, oh man, I wonder what, St. John Lutheran Church, let me go check their website out. I just think that these people are paying for this school and they have a right to have easy access. We shouldn't expect them to work, we should work getting the information to them. And I get that it's expensive, but I also hear these people that show up at these meetings and go, I never heard of that. And they may still, but at least we say, oh yes, you did, we sent it right to your home.
Well, we already, we send the individual student data.
what are we talking about? That's not what,
As a parent, I get all that stuff.
yeah, but no, I'm talking about that other annual report that you
Right.
sent.
Right, and I'm talking about both. That's why I just wanna make sure we understand. We send individual student data, and this year we chose to send the annual report. And the question is, with that annual report, do we wanna continue to do that? Do you want to tie yourself to it in policy? Or do you want it to be maybe an annually based decision? Because if you do end up in a financial crunch, per se, and it costs you $10,000 to send that out.
I was gonna ask how much it costs to send it out. I mean, $10,000, I think, is a lot. Did you send the individual student data and the annual report in the same?
No. Okay, that was
I mean, that
Cause
would
I asked how much those
maybe be
pretty
cheaper.
postcards
Yeah.
cost, and I thought you told me it was $10,000.
Yeah.
I just think $10,000 goes a long ways for other things.
Yes.
But I think understanding the issues goes a long way also.
And maybe it's once every 5 years. I mean, that's the thing, is maybe it's we do it sporadically, so we continue to update, you know, and kind of, because I will tell you, there were a lot of people that read those and commented back, and said, well, this was great, I didn't realize we had that. So it was nice to get out information in a different manner, but, so maybe it's not every year, I don't think it should be.
And when it says making it available to other residents, so you only sent it to parents of students in the district?
No,
It
we
was
sent it to
all.
all district.
All district patrons.
Yep.
What, I don't remember.
However,
I did.
am I reading this differently? It just says, it doesn't say, it just says distributed to. Can we distribute it electronically via school? Like, it's not, or am I missing something? It's not tying us down to it being a mailed, as pretty as it was. It just says we have to, like, we will distribute it. So couldn't we distribute it electronically?
But how do you distribute it electronically to patrons that don't have children in the district? I mean, that's the only, but like Eric said, you know, you put it on your website, but then how do you?
Well, I think you could, couldn't you take that part out, distributed to school district parents, and then it goes on to say a paper copy is available for any resident type.
That's what I'm saying, I say strike the red.
Could you also say, distribution will be determined on a yearly basis by the administration or board, whoever it needs to be, so that way we can make a choice whether we send a paper 1 year or not, or it's just available on the website.
I think we have to.
That way it's
read-
not tying to
It's,
one way or not, it's
Yeah.
leaving it fairly.
To me, this is
open.
not something I don't think should be in policy, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
I-
just my personal opinion.
and here's the reason why I think this is important to discuss, because exactly kind of what Doris is saying, and I think exactly kind of because of what Lisa's saying and everybody in between is, everybody has an opinion on how we should do this. And people are gonna say, well, I didn't know that, or I didn't get that information, or I didn't see that. And it doesn't matter how much we spend or how much we try to communicate with people. The information's available also if they come ask us for it, because everything's, almost everything's public record. But
Couldn't you just say something like the annual report shall be made available to residents of the school district by the superintendent? And paper copies will be available at the district's annual, and that a copy would be available at the school administration building?
I'm gonna say that again.
Well, I was kind of taking the first sentence, the annual report shall be made available to the residents of the school district, and a paper copy will be available at the school administration building.
And maybe they need to be made available at all buildings.
And we can
Maybe
do
it's
that.
easier for somebody to
Mhm.
walk into the building where their child is, rather than take another stop here. So maybe they need to be made available at all district buildings.
But see, I think they're important, not so much for people that have kids in school, because they're somewhat engaged and know what's going on, and they're getting individual information on their children. I think we need to worry about the people who are not here. Like, I remember comments I got when they used to do the annual report on the calendar, and people liked that. And I know all of you just go to your phones, all of you just go. Not everybody does that. And it is cumbersome to sometimes, I forget what I was looking for, something, and when you go to the calendar, like, I don't know when they put that stuff on there, but I got comments. People like to know what's going on in the schools, and if there's a way, I don't think it's their job to come to us, it's our job to go to them. They're paying that taxes, you know, it's not like, I get that it's expensive and maybe we need to be creative about a way around that, but I will be the first to say that I looked through that last year, when they used to do that nastiness on the calendar. No, I didn't look. I looked at it when it was cute pictures of small children. And that was fun to look at, but a big chart, no, not so much. I don't know, I don't think it's their job to come to us, it's our job to go to them. And how we do that, you know, would have to be determined.
I just think the majority of maybe people that I talk to will say, that's $10,000 spent better somewhere else.
And I probably agree with Lisa that it should not be in policy.
Right.
You know, I think maybe just say, you know, that you will have an annual report, and then determine some other way of distributing it. I mean, I think you have to do the annual report.
I mean, the yellow's fine, it's updated and it's on the school's website, a paper copy. Outside of that, I mean, I think we can still offer paper copies at any of the district buildings, but.
And we can still put it on the website. We could also maybe possibly utilize our local, our paper, you know. We can share information with one of them, and when it comes to that, and put it out there, so.
Okay, do we have any idea when this policy was first written? When was policy 1040 approved originally?
It would be on the website.
Well, 1040 is theirs, I can look up our.
11:35.
It was 11:35.
I can look that up.
And what, because, you know, technology and all sorts of things have changed, so, you know, if we're looking at, it was done in 2010, we probably need to, or maybe 1995?
Yeah, because that's when a lot of them were done.
So, you know, things, the way things were distributed at that time are a lot different than they are now.
Right. I think we can,
Calendars.
So,
go ahead.
06, it was revised in 14, but ours is much simpler. What ours says is the Beatrice Public School District shall prepare a written performance report in accordance with Nebraska Department of Education Rule 10. This report will be updated annually and part of the school district's website. A paper copy of the district's annual performance report will be available at the school administration building.
I think
That's ours.
I'd be even more happy if we would change it to at all district buildings and at the Chamber of Commerce or someplace that the public will. I mean, something,
Then we just will have the public library.
and the library, I mean, I think we should
Maybe
list
more
some,
people would utilize the library in the
Exactly.
chamber.
Yeah, I think that,
I think there should be buildings outside that people
I was
frequent.
gonna say, they walk in there
Right.
a lot more than they do into the
Right.
chamber office.
Well,
But
I'm
we
just
could
trying to be-
strategically place it at different
Even at the
locations
Board
too.
of Public Works,
Mhm.
they've got 4,000 people who walk in a month.
I think personally, it comes down to, this is good discussion. It comes down to, again, I don't know that type of string belongs in policy. Because we know we have to do an annual report by Rule 10. We know we have to provide it to our district residents, or it has to be available to our district residents. But to necessarily mail it all out is an expense that we ask, is that really necessary?
Why did we do it last year then?
Because I think we wanted to communicate with our public and make sure that everybody had the information.
I kind of liked what Danielle, probably preferred
Yeah,
that
it seems more
language.
simpler and leaves it open for then determination on whether we mail it, just put it on the website, or have copies available. Yeah, I would agree with that. Leave it a little vague.
No, you're okay?
Okay.
All I wanna make sure is you don't have people come back to you and say, well, we didn't know this information, or we didn't get this information.
But I agree, it doesn't need to be, the policy should just state we have to do it,
Mhm.
Right.
and then we can make on a yearly basis how.
A determination of how to do it. Yeah.
Okay? We'll wordsmith it and get it back to you at the next meeting. 1050 is our old 1218, public access to school records examination, making memoranda and copying. And it comes with our regulation forms, our administrative regulation forms that are in there. $10.60,
Do we charge people to come in and wanna make, us to make a copy? Like if the media requests information, how do we do that?
if the media requests it, we can charge for time taken to do it and cost of making it.
Is that in our policy?
Yes.
So what would it cost if they wanted a copy of this? If they asked tonight for a copy of this,
All the policies.
what would that cost? I'm just curious.
Well, we would have to figure out how much time it took us to do this. And then we would have to figure out how much,
I mean, typically I just let you
Materials.
just hand it to the people, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious. What we do charge, do we charge the highest possible amount, or are we reasonable about it is my question.
well, we try to be reasonable, but it depends on the labor that's involved in it too. I mean, a lot of labor went into these policies, right, Danielle? So,
Well, and depending on what they're asking for, isn't that under state
100%.
statute that you can
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
charge for it? But, you know, sometimes you have to do a lot of research in order to find what you're looking for.
yeah.
But sometimes it's done as a hindrance too.
Yeah.
1060, again, you can see the yellow section there, you'll want to read through that. 1060.1. 1070 had just a little bit that we pulled over. I'm going through these fast because I know time is, you're not gonna wanna spend all night here going through this, but you need to read them. 1080, 1100, 1100.1, none of those have any type of corrections in them whatsoever. They're all pretty straightforward policies that come directly from legal counsel referred to us. And I think that's the other big thing is legal counsel is gonna provide you with a policy that they know is, that meets state statute. So we're not gonna do anything without their graces. All the way through 1101.2. All of those, none of those change from Perry Law Firm to us. So clear back to 1310. That's really where the next one comes into play. And the question on 1310, in the highlighted section, it states, in the interest of deciding which items will be allowed, the following guidelines must be followed. Any individual or group who wishes to donate a specific item to the school should make written application to the Board of Education office to obtain approval. Gifts or loans setting forth certain conditions by the individual organizing, making the gift or loan must first have written approval by the Board of Education. The district may wish to recognize donors with a listing plaque or signage within the confines of the building or the facility in which donated items were provided. So this is about people wanting to make donations to the school. And my question to you is, do you want that much responsibility as a Board of Education? So if someone wants to come, I'm gonna give you an example that's real. When we get a call that says, I wanna donate a bunch of money to you, do you want to have us have to call you and schedule that in a board meeting to receive that? Or do you want us to say, take the money? Or if someone wants to donate a bunch of
How did
equipment,
the last one play out? I don't remember seeing a request come to us,
it didn't.
but it's in here that it's supposed to.
Right.
And I think there's a reason for that, because there are certain things that come with sometimes accepting gifts, and sometimes you're left with gifts that you cannot use or will obligate you down the road that you may not be aware of, and that's what concerns me.
Right.
Like
And
if
that's
someone
true.
wants to leave us a life insurance trust or something like that, there are things that could bind the district that you may not be aware of at that time. That's what my concern is.
Yes.
If I was a superintendent, I would rather have it placed on the board, because then we would vote to say, no, based on, and then you don't look like,
Right,
even though you know that you should say no, but,
yeah.
Well, and a really good example is what happened in Lewiston, where somebody left a boatload of money to him with the stipulation, we'll put in a new track for you, but you need to build a new ag building. So all of a sudden, that obligation is, they may be giving him $1 million, but the obligation to get that
There's strings
million is going to be $500,000. And does your district have that ability?
Right.
Could you put a dollar limit in here? Like, that needs approval?
Anything over $25 we have here? No.
I mean, could it be
Well,
something?
honestly, the teachers aren't supposed to accept any gifts from parents that are over $25.
I mean, could it be like even 100,000 and under or something like that? Because again, to Janet's point, you don't want to be bound by a building
Right.
potentially without fully reviewing that, but
Yeah, and I just wanna, obviously, yes, we've been in a situation just recently where we've received, and at that point, it wasn't anything that came with that kind of consequence with it, but you're right, in the future it could.
Well,
I think they should be redirected to the foundation. Honestly, well, if they want,
They could give that.
if they want if they're gonna want a letter saying they
Tax
donated
exemption.
and all of that business, and we have a donor acceptance policy. We have it written out, spelled out. We have people that we can consult with. I can't imagine why the district would wanna accept
Correct. And that's
that
why,
kind of money.
that's why we put a donor policy into place in the foundation for these exact reasons, because there may be times you do not want to accept a gift.
Well, and item number 2, it does say gifts or loans, setting forth certain conditions. That in and of itself says that there's a stipulation with it before they will give you the gift. If it didn't have setting forth certain conditions, I look at that differently. If somebody says, here's $100,000, use it as you want, that isn't obligating us to something. But when they're setting forth certain conditions, then they're obligating you to something.
Right.
I'm not sure what, but it could be anything.
You're exactly right, and this is a great conversation, I love this, I love policy. So, if it's $100,000 gift that they want to give to the school, and it goes through the foundation, is the foundation gonna charge the school to manage that gift?
We haven't done so in the past when we've been a conduit for donations or anything else.
Now, there may be
But I mean, I
a
can't-
percentage based on, is it gonna require, like if it's just a gift in, and that's all, but if it's a gift that then requires
Right.
thank you notes, reminders, events, all of that, then there probably will be a charge of some sort. But I'm not understanding how the district can accept a large gift and not have it impact the budget.
Well,
I'm constantly told that we can't do that, but yet here we're, and like, I am obviously have an interest in the foundation, but I thought that's the purpose of a foundation.
yeah, and hypothetically speaking, we're using a figure of $100,000.
Oh.
But if that were to happen, obviously we'd be very conscientious about that and probably redirect them, because that would impact the budget. A smaller gift, or a gift of some sort of, not monetary
Like an iPad.
amount, but an iPad, or, yeah. or-
Right.
Or, like the preschool.
that's where I think we need to put some, you know, because even when you go to the book fairs at the elementaries, a lot of times you can purchase books for the teacher. Well, the way this reads, I gotta make
A request to the
a
Board of
request to the Board of
Education.
Education to buy a book
For
for,
the foundation, actually.
Yes,
Well,
thank
yeah,
you.
this
Board of
one's
Education.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Accepts, some types of
Clothing.
clothing and things
Mhm.
like that, you know.
so that's where there needs to be a value, because that happen, I mean, that's, it just happens
Yeah,
a lot of times, or somebody may donate something else, smaller value, that,
yeah.
And is this specifically talking about gifts to the school district?
yes.
It does not address the teacher.
Correct.
issue.
So that's, I think that's a totally different.
But it says gifts to school employees, so would that be, because when you go down that second part,
Gifts to employees from parents or students with a monetary value in excess of $30 would be referred to the Beatrice Education Foundation for disbursement.
so would that
Can we
be all
please change
books?
the name it to the Beatrice Educational Foundation?
I agree.
We certainly can.
Well, one of the reasons is it gets very confused with the Beatrice Education Association,
Mhm.
so it needs to have.
Okay. So, a monetary value helps prevent kind of what I was trying to get to and use really good examples, like Eric did. And that is, if somebody wants to buy a book at the book fair and donate that to the school or to a teacher, I don't think you guys want the responsibility of having to go through the approval process to do that. That's just.
That's less than $30.
Yeah, but you,
Yeah.
$30
We would be
is,
doing it every month.
yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
that's
I think we just-
ridiculous. I think it needs to be closer to 50 to 100,000, in my opinion.
I think it's poor policy to put a dollar limit in there, actually.
But then everything should come to the board. If you don't put a dollar,
I think as a district, if the district is accepting it, I think, I don't know. I mean, nobody's gonna write $100 check to the district.
But I do believe that you can accept gifts under 506 IRS regulations, is that correct?
Well,
Or government entities can.
yes, we're a tax exempt, yeah,
So I think you can accept gifts.
yes.
Because I know that came up when I was working at the city. You know, if somebody came in and said, I want to buy the sewer line, you know, can you accept that gift? And you can.
Yeah.
Nobody ever did that. Just
This comes from our
What?
previous
the
policy.
sewer.
This is former Beatrice Public Schools policy. Would
Right.
you like me to take it back to legal counsel and say, here's our struggles, can you help us with this, and then bring it back to you with that?
So here's my question. The yellow comes from our policy, so Perry's policy just has the yellow nut in it, correct?
Or some version of that, correct? Yes.
I mean, it basically says that BEF is place to go. If you're gonna make a donation.
well, I guess this does also say specifically monetary and material contributions.
But I still think that there are times that something may come to the district that the district doesn't want to accept, and you have to have some criteria for dealing with that.
Mhm.
Right. So our concerns are,
Well, it's the same as making a donation to the booster club. I mean, that's
Yep.
technically every single check should come here for approval if you read this.
For Brewster Club too.
That's where I think it needs to be a little more vague. Or a higher dollar amount.
I agree with you on that.
Policy isn't supposed to be specific.
Mhm.
well, it's supposed to allow you the ability for flexibility. And
Mhm.
And I guess if everything has to come through the Board of Education to be a donated item, we would get into exactly what we're talking about. I mean, it would be so specific that if someone wants to donate $100 to us, and I'm just gonna be honest, last year, when we were dealing with wanting to live stream video games, or excuse me, activities, everybody wanted to donate to that so they could see the activities. Do you know how many times I would have been coming to you last year? In
But
order-
that went through
That went
the
through the
foundation.
foundation.
It did, it did, but that's because we directed it there.
And that's, I think that's our point, maybe that's where it needs to go.
But I think I'm thinking about the things that just came from Pizza Hut, that probably was $100. Those like crayons and markers and all of that, and I don't wanna
School
see, I
supplies.
don't want the board meetings filled up with,
We
you
got
know,
some
we
school
got
supplies.
25,
Accept.
you know, I mean, it was a very generous gift, it was
Yeah.
very
That's awesome.
nice, but that's not the kind of thing I think that this policy is
But you are
addressing.
correct, like with, fine arts boosters and all of those, then that would have to come through here, but they don't, that doesn't go through the foundation.
No, but
They're
they're,
their
they're,
own, aren't
they're
They're
their own, they're not part of the
501(c)(3)s.
districts.
Yeah,
Oh, there's
We
some,
have, we have
they
our
are
own,
their own
yeah,
even though-
501(c)(3)s.
we pay bills, but they.
No,
reimburse
fine
us.
arts.
Is that-
Oh, the fine arts is not, the boosters is.
Okay.
We started to say, we can't do that.
we're working on,
Yeah.
we're working on that.
You're working, fine arts is.
The other part of that, just for clarification, is that technically those entities should be seeking their own 501(c)(3) designation
Right.
for tax purposes and not utilizing, operating on the schools, because that could put us in jeopardy. So we've been trying to work with that, but it's a process, so. Let me take this back to legal counsel and say, here's kind of some of the things that are revolving around our questions. And can you help us write something that makes sure that we don't end up tied into a situation we don't want to be tied into, and also allows us the flexibility to,
Not everything comes with this board.
right,
So under the gifts by school employees, am I getting this right? Everything but the word graduation came from Perry Law Firm, and the word graduation was in our policy?
are you talking about the last paragraph?
Yeah.
That's what that looks like to me too.
I just wanna make sure I'm understanding this.
And ours may have been close to that, and they didn't.
And that's the one we
You
have.
know, I remember.
So
having
just
that
the only word
discussion,
that
though.
changed was graduation,
Mhm.
was in our policy, not in yours.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess that's somebody's own prerogative. A lot of times they might be a personal friend of theirs, even if they are a teacher, you know.
1411, or excuse me, 1410 through 30 are
And that's over $30.
pretty much unchanged. So that gets us to 1440, staff participation in community affairs. All staff participating for community purposes during the school duty day requires appropriate approval of the building level principal or superintendent/assistant superintendent. So all we're saying there is if a staff member wants to participate in a community-driven event, and this already happens anyway. Okay? 1460, you'll want to read through that yellow part, and it's pulled over. 1470, you'll want to read through that, it's pulled over. 1600, 1610, 1620, and 1700 were all policies that we did not have that have been recommended to us through Perry Law.
No,
No?
no, okay, so, sorry, but if you look at your chart, anything in green text, those are current Beatrice policies that Perry did not have.
Oh, I said that just backwards?
Yes, so those are ones that we renumbered, to try and fit them in there, some of them. So the question would be, do you want to keep them as part of policy?
So they're ours.
This one, these are ours, the 1,600.
I don't have a couple of these right now, I only have three on green.
Okay,
On the first
because
page.
that's from the
Do you have
parent
anything
column,
in
not
green
in
on
our
the second
column.
page?
That's why I
Because
said
that's what
that.
the number will be. Like we're, so like if you look at this, the address policy column will
Uh-huh.
disappear.
Yeah, I just didn't, we didn't see the address policy right here. the 1,600.
Right, but at the top where it says green text communicates, it's like the first page, so. I mean, I can put them in that column too, it's the same
Okay.
policy number basically.
Oh, okay.
That's my fault then, yeah. That's, it's on the front page, it does tell what the green text is, so, but it's under the
But we
parent
only have,
policy.
we only have green text on the first page,
First
right?
page.
Right.
Yeah.
And
there's no
21,
green
and
text on the second
60.1,
page.
Because what he was saying was on the second page.
Are we not using color?
Trying to be fiduciary responsible.
No,
You can kind of tell which one should be green, I think, on the second.
Yeah.
Just run a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
It is.
Therapy dogs, form of therapy, soliciting funds, should just all be
Yeah,
green.
they are a little bit
but
lighter.
I can email this to you.
Yes.
I think it's fair to tell.
Okay, so, read through these, it's your homework, and we will get to the ones that we had questions on and supply you another recommendation to put in there, okay? 2000s are an easier section. They deal with administration. And most of them are policies that there's only one real decision you have to talk about in here, or that we have to inform you of in here. So, just for purposes of making sure we get this right, the green text, do you all have green text on all pages of your table of contents?
Yes.
Okay, so allow it. The green text on the table of contents references, indicates current Beatrice policies being incorporated into the Perry table of contents and numbering system. So these are policies that are current Beatrice policies, we're pulling them over into ours, okay? And essentially, what that, all of them are predominantly, otherwise they're almost identical to what Perry provided for us. The exception to that is if you go to 2230. 2230. Is the evaluation for administration. And, in there, that policy outlines evaluation administration of principals and other certificated administrative personnel. 2231 specifically, we added down at the bottom, a copy of the NASB evaluation instrument was approved on November 12th, 2018, and is on file at the Central Administration Office. That's the superintendent evaluation, okay? Now, the principal evaluation, we approved in 2019 because we changed it, and it has to be on file at the NDE, so it's on file with the Department of Education. The point of this is that these evaluations are evaluations that could change from year to year, but require a change in policy as well when you change them.
Do you have to have the actual evaluation in there? Can it just reference that an evaluation is performed and a copy of the evaluation, the current evaluation is on file in the district office?
We do not have to have the evaluation in policy.
That's what I would say. It's, because yes, you, I mean, even on teachers and or principals, you could probably make a slight tweak that makes sense depending upon some new event or area or curriculum, I mean, whatever that may be, that you want to evaluate everybody on, then to make that change, it requires, if it's in here, to come through the board 2-3 times for approval, and then that would be my opinion, is it just states that the current evaluation for exposition is on file in the district office.
Like it does for the superintendent.
Yes.
And just so put a number 10 that would say that, well, we have to, no, we could put it on this,
And then
20,
it's on 2230.
yeah, we'd have to put it actually in 2230, that an evaluation is on file in the district office. We can do that. Everybody okay with that? Okay?
Now going up, you highlighted the Director of Financial Business Affairs. Were you gonna question whether we should still include that because we don't actually have that position any longer?
Yes.
Let's see. In my opinion, take it out. Until ever there's a time that if it ever needs added back, we bring it back.
Okay. So that, scratch that on the back. Yeah. There's some sections that are really easy, and there are some sections that are not. I will tell you that the 5,000s will not be easy.
What month is that?
It's a surprise.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, and this, I'll be honest with you, this helps us get through one round of this, because now I think we're gonna be able to talk about what's easier for you, but sometimes you don't, we understand it when we're doing this, but when we bring it to you, it's a little bit different, so this will help us. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes. Fun project. I'm sure
It
you
is not
guys-
fun. Policy's not fun.
You just said it was.
Yes.
Well,
You said you love it.
I do love it. I love every part of my job. All right, so that's 1,000 and 2,000 for homework for you. We can read through it at the September board meeting. It'll be on the agenda. We'll make those changes that are proposed and have those in front of you. If you can bring these back in case there's any other discussion that anybody has after reading it. And if you don't mind sending an email if you have questions on other policies, that would be awesome.
At the board meeting, you won't have to read.
No.
Will you just have to talk about policies that changed, or, so how's that process gonna go?
At the board meeting, basically what I will do is we will provide you with the ones that we talked about tonight that specifically had some changes to them. Or if any of you communicate with me between now and the board meeting, we'll talk about possibly those changes. And then we can make a motion to approve as presented with changes.
Good.
Okay?
Okay.
Can I just ask, if you guys email questions, because I have the actual policies, would you just include me on any emails? So that we can try and make sure that the right files are getting updated.
We tried to make this as painless as possible, but policy can be challenging, so that's just how it is. All right. That's all I have for policy article.
Well, now moving from the riveting policy article update, we are moving into even more riveting information with the 2021-2022 budget preview.
Doris's favorite topic. Can't wait. I do truly love the budget. So, I will try and make this brief. you guys okay with me standing up?
Yes.
Okay. So preliminary for a reason, and that is because between now and the actual budget hearing, there'll be more time to analyze. We got valuations on the 20th, and currently, right now, there's been a lot of things in the hopper going on, so the budget has been prepared. I think it's at a finalization point, but I want the time between now and the budget hearing to just go through a few more numbers. I've sent this off to Bryce Wilson at the Department of Education. He's given me some suggestions, I've implemented those, but after implementation of those, I'd like him to have one more chance to review, confirm, talk, just give me that peace of mind when it comes to everything as well. The objectives for the budget hearing: explain the goals for the proposed 21-22 budget, quick review of the historical factors related to the financial background of our district, discuss factors of the budget proposal, the expenditure receipt sides of the budget, I'll explain those to you, proposed 21-22 tax levy, and the required 21-22 budget resolution. If you recall, last year, we had to have a budget resolution in the tax hearing because the legislature required it in the previous legislative session. Proposed budget, the goals of this budget cycle, the first one will never change. It will always be to finance an educational program that supports the best interest of the students attending our schools. Number two, this one relates specifically to the things that we're talking about as a Board of Education in regards to our facilities. Adjusting the general fund and building fund to accommodate future building needs. Number three just talks about the board goal of having 4 months of reserves available at all times in light of some changes that could happen. Now, many of you have heard me say this before, but I want to emphasize it. In 1998, there was a time period where the Department of Education did not pay state aid for a period of 4 months because of economic factors unrelated to schools. But it impacted the state's revenue, and the state didn't have the revenue to pay state aid to schools, so that's one of the areas they decided to stop payments for about 6 months. So for schools that did not have cash reserves on hand, that became an issue. So that's why it's important to have that. On the LC2, LC stands for Lid Computation Document. That Lid Computation Document, we are allowed to have $10,681,336 in reserves. Now, they're not gonna penalize you or anything like that if you have more, okay? But they try to limit that as well. Number four, maintain appropriate revenue stream in light of projected state aid revenue loss. This is an important concept to grasp, but I'm going to talk about it now. I'm going to wait till we get to the graphs because it's easier to explain with the graphs. And finally, recognition of the continued tax burden on property owners. It's on my mind every year that property taxes are too high. I will say it, I will agree with it. I will say that there are discussions of how to change that. There will continue to be discussions on how to change that until Nebraska is not reliant upon property taxes to fund the things that we fund. That's going to be someone who has a lot more authority than me to decide. Our student demographics, our student enrollment. So you go clear back to 2001-2 with 2,200 students in the district. Last year, at this time, we had 2,101. I think right now we're at 2,060. Okay, so we're right at that mark. Now, we know that we have students that are not in our schools right now because of either homeschooling or are choosing to homeschool because of the pandemic. We have some of those. There's a variety of reasons, but the fact of the matter is our enrollment stays pretty static, goes down a little bit, but then there's been years where it's popped back up. For instance, 15, 16, 16, 17, and so forth. So the schools are supported, our school is supported with 3 different types of revenue. We have state revenue, federal revenue, local revenue, okay? The bottom line is the state aid formula, the TIOSA formula, is really pretty easy. It comes down to needs minus resources equals state aid. The needs part, all of these little things underneath there explain what the needs part are on that part of the formula. The resources part explains all the resources part. That's your evaluation, is where you get your money from. They take your needs, they minus how much resource you have, and then that equals your state aid. Probably the biggest key is right there, local effort rate, the LER. Our state aid history looks like this, okay? Now this graph's important. I want you to pay specific attention to where we are right now. Last year, we received $6,229,000 of state aid. This year, we will receive $6,029,000 of state aid. So it went down a little bit. Remember that. This graph explains why. Because our valuations, and you'll see in a minute, went up 4.15%. So what that means to you is this. To a certain extent, you schools are penalized in this state when their valuations go up, because the state on that local effort rate sees your local effort increase, so they're not gonna contribute less to the school. That's what that means. That's just the facts. State senators can argue all they want about it, but that's the facts. Our state aid was certified on the 21st, August 21st of 2021. That number right there is what our total valuation is, $1,298,995,241. How does that compare to last year? Here's how it compares. Last year, that was our total certified number. That is our new number, so that's a 4.15% increase. Dollar-wise, that's $51,809,967 difference. So we'll get that much more. This graph is not updated, okay? And it won't be, because I don't have the report from the county assessor yet as to what the breakouts are in the different types of valuation. But I left it on there to tell you that, so I didn't forget to tell you that I will provide that to you when I get that breakout. But you can see that 52% of our district comes from urban taxes, 39% of our district comes from agricultural taxes. Personal real estate is 6%, and then centrally assessed is 3%. That was last year. I would anticipate it's not going to be a whole lot different. On the expenditure side, according to the LC2, the lid computation, the NDE certified $25,041,489. We have access to $486,614 of unused budget authority from the previous year. That means our total expenditures, $25,528,103. Okay, now what happens is then they figure in your special education dollars and how the access you have to those. At 4.9 million, that increases us to $30,513,083 of access of budget to spend. That means we could spend $30 million if we wanted to. That number, we could spend that. If we spend that, then we dip into our cash reserves, which we continually try to build, so we have reserves on hand in case something happens. So that's why we don't. That's also certified by the Department of Education. Our cash reserve that we put into the budget, which means absolutely nothing, it's a number to balance your budget, is $300,000. So that means total expenditures, I misspoke a minute ago when I said that was the total, we could spend that amount, $30,813.83. Okay, so we could spend all of that if we wanted to. The problem is, you gotta have the revenue to support that if you spend it. Now next year, I can get too far in the weeds, so I'll just go on. How that compares to last year is our general fund operating expenses went down $295,492. That's, again, certified by the Department of Education. Okay?
How did we do that?
How did we do what?
Decrease it?
How did our budget decrease? Because last year we had 1.5% growth we had access to. This year we had 3.5% growth we had access to. And so it's all based on the need side, and when your need side increases or decreases, then that decreases your budget growth. Okay. On the revenue side, it has to balance, so our beginning cash balance is estimated at $7,927,741. State and federal resources are $16,561,362, which again, these are estimated because this is an estimated budget, it's for next year. It's the budget we're building for next year, that mine. Our state aid, we know is that much, so $6,023,980, I said $6,029,000, but it's $6,023,980. That brings us to the total amount that we saw on the previous page, so our budget balances. Our expenditures match our revenue. Now, that's estimated revenue, folks, and the key there is, honestly, we know we have more revenue coming because of federal dollars that are coming to us for ESSERs. What's gonna happen in the next 2 years is every school in the state, and a lot of schools in the nation, will show more expenditures than they ever have because of that federal money coming in. So that's gonna be a little bit misleading in future years coming. It's also, at some level, going to have impacts on future budgets. So we have to keep that in the back of our mind as we prepare future budgets as well. Questions about the budget part? That's basic, it's very basic. Okay, getting in, then after we talk about the budget, the balances, we know how much we can spend, we know how much we can receive, we talk about the taxes. So what do taxes in our district look like, historically speaking? At one point in 2000, 2001, we had $1.17 on our levy, okay? I'm anticipating that that was bond money. Back then, also, the amount you could levy was different. There wasn't as much of a cap on it as there is now. And since that time period, we've had to decrease that down to $1.05, which is our max. Now keep in mind, this is general fund only. General fund only. At one time, you as a school district had the ability to tax at $1.17 in your general fund. Now it's $1.05. Tax rate history. So this just talks about going back, taking a look back to 2013. What did it look like? Well, in the general fund, you were at $1.03, building fund at 1 cent, bond fund at 7 cents, roughly, almost 8. Capital outlay, that was capital outlay tax. Oh, that's probably like the quality capital purpose undertaking fund, is at $1.15. 1819, we were at $1.07. Now, 1920, roughly about the same. 2021, roughly about the same. 21, 22 will roughly be the same, and I'll show you that in a second. How does that look on graph? Well, typically, the district has always been in the same, about the same category of revenue versus expenses. So graphically speaking, there's been a couple times where more revenue came in, but never has the district spent more than it's received. That could change from audit to audit depending on receipt of ESSER's funds coming up. So just note it. That's what it looks like. Oh, our historical cost per pupil. This is just the figures that go into the next graph. Right there. And our historical cost per pupil since 2001-2 to now. We are the blue line. The red line is the state average. You can see that our historical cost per pupil has always been lower than the state average in Beatrice. Which means we don't spend as much per pupil as all the other schools in the state on average, when you average all that out. So, the special hearing notice, what's it look like? What's this all boil down to when we talk about what we tax for the general fund, what we tax for the building fund, what we tax for the bond fund, and so forth, and how's it compared to last year? Not a lot different. Whoops. This year is on this side, so in our general fund, we're proposing a 94-cent tax, 94.3646, going into the general fund. This is the difference we've talked about. Last year, we put in 6 cents, which was up from previous years. This year, we're proposing 10.6 cents, almost 11 cents, to address our building situation and start preparing for that. That's what we've been talking to the community about, as to how we can do what we're talking about doing within our own budget. Bond fund, we paid off the bonds several years ago, okay? There's $350,000 in the bond fund right now that's been carried over from the previous bond. We're gonna have to talk about that at some point. Right now is probably not the time, but I wanna make you aware of it. So what's that mean? The quality capital purpose undertaking funds, that's the project, the lighting project and the roof project the district did, I'm gonna say in 2009-10, I don't know the exact dates, but around that time period, that we continue to pay, we have to tax for to pay off. We just refinanced those a year ago. We have a couple, I think $2 million left to pay that off, okay?
How many years, Jason? That's what I wanted to know. How many years to pay it off yet?
After the refinance,
I don't remember.
I would have to.
Put you on the spot. Just email me.
Yeah, I
Us,
will.
whatever.
So the difference is, we are down on our tax asking in those funds that much. 0.004. So, almost exactly the same for all practical purposes. This is key, I think, to understand. Our actual tax request is down a little bit. Last year, our actual request was $12,321,212. This year it's $12,257,922, so down just a little bit. I'm gonna go back to that slide. Are there any questions about that right now?
I had a question until you flipped to the next one. That was gonna answer my questions.
Okay. This is just everything we've been talking to the community about. You notice that a year ago, we put 98 cents into the general fund. We were operating off of 98 cents. This year, we're talking about 94 cents. So basically, we're talking about all of our operational costs that we pay for our checking account on a day-to-day basis. We operate with a little less in there. But when you look at the tax that we're asking, it goes in there, it's not a whole lot less going into the general fund because the valuation increases. Tax collection history, this is what it looks like. So, on an annual basis, the taxes that we certify and the amount we collect don't always match. And the percent collected doesn't always reflect that in a budget year. And so the thing to understand is we're eventually gonna get those, but if there's back taxes, we may not get them for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years later, depending on what happens with that land. So that does impact us as well. So those are the most recent points that we can present to you in terms of tax collection history, and that has an impact on our annual budget. Questions?
Do you apply a percentage into the budget based on that collection history, or do you just assume we're gonna collect 100%?
I assume, because technically where I'm capped at $1.05 and gonna be there, I can't apply anything into it. So I just assume that at some point we're gonna get back taxes if they're out there.
have any idea how much dollar amount is out there? How much is uncollected at this point? Do you have any idea, based on all those numbers?
No.
As the assessor or the treasurer, would they?
They would be the people to go to actually work to figure that number out. I bet they don't have, well, they might have it on hand.
You know, I'm thinking, are we owed $2 million back taxes?
Yeah.
It's a curious question.
Yeah. Two questions. One,
It's probably for multiple years. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, they're probably gonna figure it by year, you know?
Yeah, and I was thinking, yes, I think it would be multiple years. You could have something 10 years already, still sitting out
They don't
there.
certificate until they're past due for 3 years.
Yeah.
back taxes. I'm gonna write that down. Total amount.
Taxes were just, aren't just due, the second half is just due, I mean,
Right.
coming up next week, so.
Question.
Might be best to ask after next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what's-
But I'll ask them, see if they can help me with that. Yeah.
On that general fund number there, when it goes down to 94, do you, when you, that number in there, do you have an idea what is gonna be, the funding is gonna be cut? Bring it down to that 94 number at this point, or is that just what you're trying to meet so we can get to that 10-cent building fund?
I think because evaluations went up, we're able to decrease it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I'm sure there'll be some cuts made.
Well, there's a lot of ifs in that, because if taxes come in the way we've asked for them, as compared to the tax history, that impacts on where we're at. So I would say that in reference to cuts being made, we have made a lot of cuts in the last several years.
I think we're as lean as we can possibly get at this point in time.
Right.
I'm
Unless
concerned
we
that
start
we
cutting
will get,
programs.
we will be so eager to do that, that it will come at the expense of children's education. And we will all differ on what we think is damaging to children's education, but as I've shared before, large classes are not, in my mind, lead to great education.
Most often.
30 children sitting in social studies classrooms year after year after year after year does not lead to children leaving our buildings with a solid understanding of what makes America work, I believe. I just think it's just too hard. There's just too many children in here. But that's just an example. I mean, that is, I don't know. I'm with Eric. I'm a little concerned. Like, I like the idea. I mean, it sounds really good, but I want us to be careful that we're not hurting today's children to provide for tomorrow's children.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I think, don't think that I'm the one that has to answer these questions. You can chime in whenever you want. But I think,
Yeah, you can take the heat too.
I know.
I think Dr. Nielsen summed it up best when she said, we've cut as far as we can possibly, we've made as many reductions as we possibly can. To the point where, in some of those numbers of social studies kids, I agree with you, 30's too many. We have to be cognizant of that as we move forward, and that's part of why last year we started with 8 cents, or 6 cents going into the building fund from the previous 4. This year, with the valuation increase, we're able to go a little more. Now, unless I'm completely wrong, I don't see valuations going down. Now, the legislature could make valuation changes that could impact us.
What is our max levy? So the ask is $1.07, what's the max you can even ask?
Well, you can only tax $1.05 in your general fund and building fund. Now, the quality capital purpose undertaking funds
Is outside of that?
is outside of that.
Okay.
And that used to be higher than 3 cents. It used to be you could access up to 6 or 8 cents, I don't remember exactly, but they changed that too, they ratcheted that down.
So the $1.05 is your total,
Yeah.
not your cap?
So our general fund, which doesn't include the building, you have it calculated up there, and probably should say 2021 on the left side, 2021, or 21, 22 on the right side, down below, keep going down. Because you have $12,198,000, right?
Yeah, that's this year. You mean that on the right should be 21, 22, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should say
Okay.
21, 22.
But so as your calculations stand, our general fund, which is the operation of the teachers, the paying of the teachers, the paying of everything else we do, did not really go down a whole lot when we put the building fund at 10 cents, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Because.
Of valuations.
Of the increased valuations.
Yeah.
And so, we're not operating on a whole lot less money. The problem is going to be, as I said, in the future, what happens with unforeseen things that we can't control. Valuations may continue to go up. Does the UNICAM will do something different with that? We don't know. But as it stands right now, we're not really operating off a whole lot less money by doing what we did in the special building fund. I mean, really, we got 4 extra cents in there. We could, and that's representative in what's in the general fund, but we're able to manage it on about the same amount of money. So,
Is that the end of the report?
that's all I have unless there's another question.
Really?
Yeah. I will bring this back to you. I don't anticipate any changes, folks, but I just wanna make sure that when we get in the special hearing, it's all right where it needs to be. Eric, you had a question, did I answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have other questions between now and then, don't be afraid to call, ask, stop in, whatever. And I'll work on those 2 questions. Okay.
This is the proper time for public questions and comments on any topic. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I stop you for just a quick second? Quick update on 3 items. Building discussions, currently, we're having those. We've been out to the community 402 on Monday. We met with teachers yesterday to explain what we're doing with them. We were at Rotary today. We have 2 more public sessions, Monday and Tuesday. We're scheduling a date to get in front of Kiwanis shortly. And
And then we talked about scheduling another date, just at the have alone, just kind of following up with anyone if they couldn't make the other dates too. Yep.
so, we do have, along those lines, we do have a survey out on the BPS website, so people can give us feedback. It's there on the proposed PK5 building, so we can collect that information. That's out there. And then lastly, we also on our website have the COVID percentage number on that page as well, to communicate with our district with the metric that was decided upon, what percentage of our population is COVID positive that we're aware of.
Are we planning on placing the PowerPoint presentation that you're using on the website?
Yes.
And I know there were questions today at Rotary. As we do these public meetings, are you gonna put those questions and answers on there as well, so that people can see that? If they can't attend, then they still, at least their questions could be answered. They may have some of the same questions that have come up.
Yeah.
we also want to videotape one, whether it's just us talking, so it's just the presentation, or whether it's one of the presentations, we've talked about doing that too, and just putting that on the site, so that's out there as well. For people to watch if they cannot make it, so they have the information.
Okay.
Ready? Sorry.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.